Jotaro, it's time to get serious! Stop trying to act cool and use your blasted head!
There's nothing quite like watching an anime you love drop a pop culture reference you completely understand. A good pop culture reference can enhance a scene or a series and make you laugh or give you a better appreciation of the series itself. So today, we're talking about some of the best pop culture references in anime. Let's get into it. There's only one way to start off this list, and that's of course with Gintama, the king of pop culture references. No other anime out there can match the zaniness and spirit this hilarious series has, and the world is all the better for it. It's basically a parody series, taking popular anime and putting their own hilarious spin on them. Throughout its history, it's tackled all of your favorite anime ranging from Berserk, Final Fantasy, Bleach, Kuroko no Basket, and of course, the holy grail of all anime, Dragon Ball Z, among countless others. Gintama packs so much humor and parody-level greatness in its episodes that the plot is irrelevant. But it's so epic we just got to share it anyway. You can tell the people behind JoJo's Bizarre Adventure love pop culture, especially music, with a series filled with references of famous bands and artists. Like if you think Robert E.O. Speedwagon's name is odd, it's because it's a reference to rock band REO Speedwagon. Instances like that pack every inch of the show with famous rock bands like Led Zeppelin, Queen, Dire Straits, Doobie Brothers, and Styx all being referenced at one point or another. And of course, we can't forget the Beatles, whose song Get Back starts with the line, "Jojo was a man who thought he was a loner, but he knew it wouldn't last." A song that one of the JoJos actually listens to in the manga. SpongeBob SquarePants is the single greatest show of all time. If aliens came down to Earth tomorrow and asked us to show them one show that represents all of humanity, we'd show them the tale of the sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea. The show is more influential than you think, with one of its iconic characters somehow making its way into the world of Gurren Lagann. It happens quickly in episode 12, but after an awesome underwater fight, it seems our heroes leave with a brand new crewmate, one Squidward Tentacles. Not many people knew what to expect from Land Saga before it premiered. It wasn't a stretch to guess that zombies would be involved, but what was this show going to be? Finally, the curtain was peeled back after the first episode to reveal an epic twist. This is a zombie idol girl anime. The show quickly proved itself as an excellent parody to the classic idol anime because, well, mainly its stars were now all rotting. Being so tongue-in-cheek with its humor and style, it's only natural there would be funny pop culture references sprinkled throughout the show. The best might come from the idol group's resident zombie puppy, who looks cute and cuddly but could pack a mean bite when called upon. The dog's name is Romero, which horror fans know is a reference to George Romero, the legendary mastermind behind classic zombie films like Night of the Living Dead. Nothing kills a show faster than an awkward piece of product placement. It's rarely natural and always feels forced. But you know what's not forced? Dr. Pepper's new dark berry soda flavor. It's refreshing, bold, and hits the spot. Yes, product placement is awful, but maybe sometimes it works if it fits the show's tone. Take the Tiger and Bunny anime show that sees superheroes compete on a show called Hero TV as they fight to become crowned king of heroes. With such an absurd premise, it makes sense for the superheroes to have sponsors for the show, with their logos usually adorning their jackets and costumes. But what's interesting is that some of these are real-world sponsors, like Pepsi, which went ahead and actually used their sponsored hero in the show, in a real-life Pepsi commercial. Talk about blurring the lines between fact and fiction. This is one of the most bizarre pop culture references on the list, but apparently the anime about weaponized alien clothing can find time to fit in characters of Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece Pulp Fiction in its background. Kill la Kill was a great blend of beautifully animated action with a quirky sense of humor when it needed it, which is probably why Pulp Fiction characters worked their way into the show in the first place. It's almost a blink or you'll miss it moment in episode 4, but as Mako's family races in their car, you can clearly see Mia Wallace, Butch, his love Fabian, and of course John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson's iconic Vincent and Jules, freshly cleaned after the accidental murder of Marvin. One Piece is one of the most popular and long-running anime around. Its impact on the anime world is incomparable. And it's even cooler when you find out that many characters in the show have a real-life celebrity inspiration. Some fans have dedicated a lot of time in combing through its large cast of characters to find the exact fit for some of One Piece's most memorable personalities. Some of them are pretty obvious. Like, is it really that hard to understand that Capone Beige, the mafia don turned pirate, is a reference to Al Capone? But there are other more interesting homages, like Django being modeled off of Michael Jackson, and how two of Jim Carrey's most famous characters, Ace Ventura and Lloyd Christmas, seem to be the basis for Frankie and Mr. Tube on Clay. If you stumble onto the English dub of Ghost Stories, you're going to be in for quite the shock. Especially if you've watched the original Japanese version of the show, which revolves around a bunch of preteens ghost-busting their hometown. Pretty straightforward, right? This version was a failure in Japan, so when ADV Films was brought on to do the English dub, they were given free rein to practically do whatever they wanted to the show. The end result was an absurd dub that changed every character to an extremely politically incorrect version of themselves. Even the masters of political incorrectness like South Park and Family Guy would look at this show and say, "Whoa guys, is this taking things too far?" Picture this. You're out on a Friday night exploring a sinister abandoned warehouse by yourself. What could go wrong? Suddenly you realize you're not alone. Something lurks in the distance, slowly making its way toward you. You're frozen in fear and cannot move. Out of the shadow comes your worst nightmare, Colonel Sanders. The last thing you see as you scream bloody murder is his dead-eyed stare and his bright red bow tie. Alright, so maybe the spokesperson for Kentucky Fried Chicken isn't the true embodiment of a horror, but the creators of Project A-Co sure seem to think so. In this 1986 sci-fi anime film, the main characters watch a movie in theaters that, for some reason, has Colonel Sanders as its villain? If you're a serious film buff, you're going to love the Princess Jellyfish opening credits. In this lighthearted romantic comedy anime, the lead character, Tsukimi Kurashita, is an 18-year-old otaku who lives in an apartment building filled with other otaku women who don't allow men into the complex. Tsukimi wants to be an illustrator, which partly explains why the opening animation seems to be one big love letter to cinema. Throughout this lovely opening, we get references to a mix of some super popular movies and some maybe lesser-known ones. In this one opening alone, we catch references to Star Wars, Singin' in the Rain, Mary Poppins, 007, Kill Bill, The Graduate, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and we even think the 1973 film Emperor of the North Pole. Talk about your deep cuts. It's a charming reference to some of cinema's most iconic films, and it fits Princess Jellyfish's tone perfectly. Sometimes the world needs a really great satire to take a look at the things that are going on and pointing out the obvious flaws. A solid satire anime is Sayonara Zetsubou Sensei, which follows the world's most depressed teacher and his quirky, lovable students. How depressed is this guy? Well, he carries around a rope with him everywhere, if you catch our drift. But it's through his eyes that we get a really funny anime that satires and analyzes all different parts of Japanese life and culture, while still throwing in some pop culture references every now and then. If you ever watch this show, be sure to keep your eyes on the blackboard in the classroom, as you'll spot references to Gurren Lagann, One Piece, and Code Geass, among others, while also throwing in some famous figures throughout the show like Freddy Krueger and even Bob Ross. We wonder how the Seinfeld cast would feel if they knew their show was referenced in the Red Garden anime. Now, Seinfeld being referenced in an anime is pretty weird. We understand South Park being referenced, or even Pulp Fiction, but Seinfeld? The show about nothing? What's the deal with that? And it's not even a direct reference. The characters in Red Garden are talking in the park when one of them mentions how good the soup they're eating is. The other character explains how it's from a soup shop where the owner is really weird. He makes his customers follow his exact rules. And if they don't listen, he bans them from getting soup for a whole year. Short way of saying that, no soup for you. Yep, this is definitely a reference to the infamous soup Nazi from Seinfeld. Man, that must be some really good soup. You know what would make Stanley Kubrick's famous 2001: A Space Odyssey Dawn of Man scene even better? If it was performed by pretty girls in swimsuits instead of monkeys. That seems to be the thinking behind this scene from the anime A Certain Scientific Railgun, where episode 13 saw the characters hired to be swimsuit models at a more or less virtual reality swimsuit company building. One of their virtual reality stops includes the moon, where they see a gigantic black monolith in the distance. If the reference to Stanley Kubrick's film wasn't clear enough, the famous score kicks in with its heavy iconic drums, and Kuroko realizes that she's holding a huge bone in her hand. Her expression is priceless. You know when an episode is called "A Bikini Divides the Eye Line Between Top and Bottom, but a one piece shows off the figures so they only flatter the slender"? You're in for a good time. Of course, one of the most popular time travel anime of all time is going to have a reference to one of the most influential time travel films in all of cinema history. Back to the Future is a landmark in the time travel genre, and almost every time travel story since then owes the film franchise some sort of debt. Even Steins Gate, an anime about a group of people who discover and develop a technology that allows them to send text messages to their past selves, can't go too long without referencing Back to the Future. They call the messages they send back to the past D-mails, which is short for DeLorean mail. We're sure we don't have to tell you that the DeLorean is the type of car Marty McFly used to travel back in time with in Back to the Future. You'd think a show about an amusement park that saps magical energy from its guests would have characters named after some of the greatest magical characters of all time. Maybe throw in a Merlin somewhere, possibly even a Gandalf or a Harry Potter-sounding name if you wanted to. But that is not how Amagi Brilliant Park rolls. Nope. In a head-scratching pop culture reference, a lot of the characters are named after prominent African-American entertainers. The main character is Seiya Kanye, which is a playoff of Kanye West. The female lead is Isuzu Sento, which plays off of 50 Cent. And Latifah Florenza references Queen Latifah. Totally not what you're expecting from this type of anime, that's for sure. But maybe their character names make a little sense. Seiya is a perfectionist who acts like a prince to the point of being narcissistic, which actually sounds a little like Kanye. How many times do we have to tell you kids? Don't go imitating things you see in movies. Just because you see Batman beat up a whole bunch of criminals with his bare hands doesn't mean that you should go out and mimic it. And just because you see an alien magically lift a boy and his bike to travel across the night sky doesn't mean it's going to happen to you too. In Ground Control to Psychoelectric Girl, our main character Makoto is trying to convince Iryo Toa that she's human and not an alien investigator. They replicate the classic ET scene with the bicycle, except it doesn't go very well. And they seem to only fly a little bit before crashing straight into the ocean. It's a scene that's a clear homage to E.T., right down to Makoto using what looks like the same type of bicycle. For years, we watched Kiefer Sutherland's CTU agent Jack Bauer kick all sorts of enemy butt as he raced against a constantly ticking clock to stop terrorist attacks, assassination attempts, and nuclear bombs. But never has he had to race against time to do the most difficult task of all: plan a birthday party. Fortunately for him, it looks like the cast of Lucky Star has it all taken care of. In a nail-biting turn of events, Yui, Byakuta, and Konada's father only have a short amount of time to plan a birthday party for Konada. So they roll up their sleeves and get to work, making all the preparations to make the best party ever, like hanging decorations, making a card, making food, and ordering a present, but set against 24's classic split screen and iconic ticking clock sound. It's too bad Konada was too busy with another party to show up. Out of all the pop culture references in this list, Ghost in the Shell standalone complex referencing J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye novel is the one that's most intrinsic to the story itself. Most of the others here are passing cameos or quick throwaway gags, but not this one. In the anime, the team fights the Laughing Man, a hacker with the ability to override people's visual cyberbrain implants, who's obsessed with J.D. Salinger in The Catcher in the Rye. Not only is his name, the Laughing Man, a reference to another J.D. Salinger story, but he's often quoting The Catcher in the Rye as he continues his quest. It's an amazing reference because instead of some throwaway joke, the show inspires us to go out and find out what The Catcher in the Rye is all about, and why the Laughing Man connects so strongly with it. The story of the Daikon IV opening animation is nothing short of fascinating. It's a short film that was produced by a group of amateur animators in 1983. It might just be the most 80s thing you'll ever see and hear in your life. The Daikon IV opening is packed with pop culture references and characters. Set to the absolute banger Twilight by ELO, we see our unnamed heroine go on a jam-packed space adventure. Dressed in the iconic Playboy bunny outfit, she duels with Darth Vader, battles a xenomorph, and wields a weapon that looks a lot like the ship from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and fights off an incoming Dynaman robot. And that's just the beginning. Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, the Thunderbirds, Batman and Robin, and a whole bunch of pop culture references are stuffed into this opening. It's almost impossible to catch them all. Take a look and try for yourself. Well, that's our list of our favorite pop culture references in anime. What's your all-time favorite pop culture reference? Are there any we should have included? Let us know down in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more awesome anime content from CBR. Thanks for watching.